You only need to know me. I will be the one.
Luffy is awakening or has awakened. In this short video we'll be going over why Zoro might be awakening as well, but before we get into that, a special thank you to today's sponsor, the subscribe button. Help me thank our sponsor by clicking the subscribe and like button below. 5,000 likes and I'll drop a part 2 for this video about a character many have overlooked when it comes to death and awakening potentially, as well as the inherited will of devil fruits and other powers. But yeah, I've never seen such ecstatic or positive takes on such a gloom and doom subject as is death before, but here we are. Everyone is talking about chapter 1043 and how Kaido declared Luffy had died. Now there's some debate as to whether Luffy had actually died or if his voice had simply disappeared for some other reason. The word voice that Oda so often zooms in on, hones in on, and gives heightened focus to. This voice seems to be another way of saying presence or life. The voice of your soul maybe cannot be heard anymore, just like the voice of all things or breath of all things. There appears to be some slight overlap with observation haki, but the voice of all things, again, focusing on a so-called voice, a voice of the soul, appears to be very different, unique in its application in the story. But let's pretend that Luffy did kind of die, or in Zoro's words, against Mr. One, which I'll expand upon when I release a really exciting Zoro video next week, hopefully. Zoro said he's experienced death before, this feeling of a near-death experience at least. The place or border between worlds, how on the boundary between life and death, his own heartbeat beats loudly like a drum. Yes, I know what you're thinking after hearing that. Zunisha's words about the drums of liberation. The drumming sound of freedom that was attributed to the return, the resurrection of Joy Boy, as it appeared Luffy had revived and awakened maybe his devil fruit. And so we can assume Luffy, like Zoro, had entered the boundary between life and death, but who knows if this is required to awaken your devil fruit. Other characters like Doflamingo and Katakuri have awakened, but there's no indication they did so by almost dying or actually dying. Someone has sent me a theory in the past, now that I think about it, about Conqueror's Haki and how other characters unlocked Conqueror's Haki under similar circumstances, and maybe I'll make a video on that after all in the future. Maybe there's a way to go beyond awakening though, and that level of awakening, just as there are levels to Haki, requires a near-death experience. But since we can't answer that until we get more information, let's move on. So considering Luffy awakening after being declared dead by Kaido to the Alliance, a lot of people on Twitter have been talking about this speech from Kaido about death in the past. Kaido's belief that death is what completes a person. You cannot become perfect until you die. The story, the legend of your life not being complete until it embarks upon that final chapter. But there is now, as of chapter 1043, added meaning to this, and just maybe Kaido's own desire to die. That he had been searching for a place to die, and so he came to Wano Kuni, as is my belief and others, to do just that. Maybe thinking it was the place where Joy Boy would return. Joy Boy being a man who in a great war would defeat him. The war maybe that we are experiencing now. But there is also the idea that death or a near-death experience is again required to achieve awakening, or better yet, to go beyond awakening. And so I saw a theory from Joe3Skull on Twitter, and it's called Devil Fruit Symbiosis. And rather than break it all down for you here, I will link it in the description box below in the comment section. But adding my own thoughts to Joe's theory, we get the following few minutes of discussion. Basically, while some can simply awaken and use their devil fruit powers awakening, its true ability, as an additional weapon in their arsenal, devil fruit symbiosis would go beyond awakening by allowing the devil fruit user and their devil fruit to become one. Remember how eating more than one devil fruit is rumored to result in your body exploding or you dying, and the assumption is because the devils, the souls, are fighting for space, it's too cramped. Well, in the case of Luffy's awakening maybe, and others that might have gone or will go through this, eating one devil fruit doesn't mean you have perfectly bonded with your fruit. A symbiotic awakening would be that next or final step, and so rather than merely coexist in the same body, your soul and the devil's soul cease being neighbors and become one. Kaido had mentioned the light never leaving Luffy's eyes, and we see Luffy toward the end of chapter 1043 with his blackened, dark eyes. All we see is shadow, no light, and from the silence of the page leaps a sound, the beating of drums, marking the return of Joy Boy. Joe 3 Skull put forth the idea that Joy Boy has taken over Luffy's body, and I really liked this idea because, for one, it ties into Thriller Bark, an arc that is connected to and foreshadowed parts of Wano. Luffy had shadows, kind of like souls, placed into his body to become Nightmare Luffy, and thereafter we see Luffy face off against a creature named Oars, that looked kind of like Kaido. Maybe they're related. But at the end of Thriller Bark, after defeating Oars and Moria who warned Luffy of the true nightmare Kaido that was waiting for him in the new world, we then see the sun rise, foreshadowing what I believe will happen when Kaido falls. The sun will rise, the dawn of a new world, at least for Wano. But there are various ways to lose control, I think, and they might include a loss of consciousness or even falling asleep. Either way, something else takes over you maybe. If you can't fight it, the nightmare, the shadow self off, the other soul dwelling within you, seeking to take over. Now some people maybe can perfectly bond with this other self or other soul, and maybe Luffy is doing just that. Luffy isn't one to be conquered after all, controlled. He doesn't want to conquer or control anything himself even though he's a conqueror. So I like the symbiosis idea, working together, especially after adding my own thoughts to it. But before we go on, this video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Surfshark is a highly trusted virtual private network that protects your computer and data from nosy ISP companies, big corporations, and hackers looking to steal your data and private information, and Surfshark keeps you safe and shields your privacy by encrypting your data and switching the real location of your device to a new one. Surfshark secures all your private information so you can avoid getting trapped in situations you don't want to be in. After all, no one wants to be stuck at sea knowing there are sharks in the water trying to get them, and Surfshark will prevent that from happening. Surfshark also lets you connect to servers in over 65 countries on unlimited devices, and you can even watch movies on Netflix that aren't available in your country, such as your favorite anime TV shows and movies. All you have to do is connect to Surfshark, sit back, grab some popcorn or whatever it is you like to do and enjoy. All this at the click of a button. And unlike other VPNs that restrict the number of devices that you can use, Surfshark allows you to share your account with as many devices as you want. I'd say that's the best kind of gift. One you can get for yourself but pretend to get for someone else. A gift is meant to be shared after all, and so I'm sharing this information about Surfshark VPN with all of you, and aside from clicking the link in the description, you can get Surfshark VPN by going to surfshark.deals/Vinland and entering promo code Vinland for 83% off and 3 extra months for free. But this also takes us to the idea of Zoan awakenings, and check out my Kaido awakening video if you haven't already. But for a while we have speculated that some awakened Zoans lose their minds when they awaken. That is, if they lose control and become rabid animals. The animal or beast taking precedence over the human mind. All free will is lost. Zoan devil fruits might be similar to smile fruits, which are based off Zoans, smiles that often act of their own accord in defiance of the host counterpart. Zoan fruits also have a life and mind of their own then, like smiles. The actual spirits of beasts or animals perhaps, which explains how objects that eat Zoan devil fruits can assume personalities or individual identities worthy of names. Maybe this is why a Zoan awakening that is not handled well or controlled properly can lead one to lose self-control, to lose mastery over themselves and the beast within, unless the devil fruit, the awakening, has been properly tamed, or unless the wielder's haki or will is strong enough. The guards of Impel Down weren't conquerors. They don't seem to have had strong wills, generally speaking, who knows. So maybe that explains something. While the objects that have eaten Zoan devil fruit seem to take on a life of their own, a soul of their own, when there was no prior soul to share the body with, no prior soul or human soul to resist, which again ties into the idea of eating 2 devil fruits. Humans or living creatures that eat Zoan devil fruits might share a body with another living soul. And so maybe a danger of awakened Zoans again is losing yourself to the devil within if you cannot control or conquer the power you have attained. But given the new information from chapter 1043, maybe some Paramecia devil fruits or even Logia or all devil fruits also have a living soul lurking within them, lurking legends, that because Zoan devil fruits can assume personalities or individual identities worthy of names, like Funkfried, the sword elephant, or Lasu, the gun dog, the Gomu Gomu no Mi, whoever awakens it, awakens the powers or title of Joy Boy. This idea of Joy Boy being tied to the inherited will and soul of the Gomu Gomu no Mi is something many are considering now, and I think there's something to the idea. I also think Luffy and awakening an ancient power, the soul of Joy Boy, that had been slumbering for centuries, is not alone, and maybe Zoro during Wano or in the future will join him in awakening a new ability. We talked about drums, a sort of music, and so I wanted to address a theory about Binks Sake, a song that was commonly sung amongst the pirates of old, meant to lift the spirits of those who sing it, to raise the spirits, and maybe in a way raise the defeated or the dead. Maybe a song that originated with Joy Boy or before him, maybe a song of the ancient kingdom. And so there are some Binks Sake lyrics that read, "Now the waves are dancing, beat upon the drums. If you lose your nerve, this breath could be your last. But if you just hold on, the morning sun will rise." This part of the song plays out this chapter. In a way, Binks Sake kind of works as a prophecy, with Luffy holding on to life despite being declared dead. The sound of the drums and the rising sun, the dawn, Luffy as the sun god Nika will usher into the world. The sun god Nika, Joy Boy rising again. Japan, in this case Wano Kuni, being the land historically of the rising sun. But maybe even with great subtlety in prior chapters, this had begun already, with Luffy falling in the water, but his voice reaching out from the waves below as he held his breath. The initial spark for his awakening as he rose from a watery grave to challenge Kaido another time. But there's another line to this song that follows, and it goes like this. "Now the waves are dancing, beat upon the drums. If you lose your nerve, this breath could be your last. But if you just hold on, the morning sun will rise. Going to deliver Binks Sake, today and tomorrow, our dreams through the night. Waving our goodbyes, we'll never meet again. But don't look so down, for tomorrow night, the moon will also rise." In this union or pairing of sun and moon, Shanks and Ben Beckman come to mind based on what Oda had said about them, but also so do Luffy and Zoro. Luffy the sun and Zoro the moon. Shimotsuki apparently means frost moon or frozen moon. Zoro was born in the month of November or the month of the frozen moon. The theories surrounding the skull of Jaya indicate one eye being the sun and the other the moon. The Shandians even seem to have an association with the sun from Skypiea, whereas the people of Wano, such as the Kozuki family, with their crescent tattoos are associated with the moon. Given the hints about Zoro's relationship to Wano then, whether familial or simply inherited will, his fighting style even being described as being similar to Shimotsuki Ushimaru and Shimotsuki Ryuma, as well as Ryuma also being a one-eyed samurai. It's almost as if Oda has been setting Wano up for this final plot point. That just as the sun god Nika would rise again here in Wano, so would the moon. The god of the blade, Zoro in place of Ryuma as Wano's divine protector. The black blade that Tenguyama Hitetsu had spoken of, that Zoro has yet to unlock, and I think should leave Wano with, if not 3, then at least 1. The question is what must be done, what must he do to unlock it? Defeat Kaido, help defeat Kaido alongside Luffy, or overcome death as Luffy also has. Given Zoro's similar situation, Zoro's encounter with the specter of death, as well as the light that has left his eyes as we see him fall from Onigashima before being caught by Frankie, it's possible this is where Oda is going. Given how swordsmen have a similar relationship to their swords as do devil fruit users with their devil fruits, it's possible Zoro will bond with whatever will is lurking within his blades after surpassing death, defeating the Grim Reaper, a symbiosis between him and the duty of his blades. I think we caught a glimpse of this with Cavendish in the past and his alter ego known as Hakuba, a spirit or personality that seemed to belong to his sword, that he struggled to control. The result of this are different colored eyes, blue indicating Hakuba, and yellow indicating a bond or fusion of the two, Cavendish and Hakuba. Control, mastery, the sort of mastery maybe, that even Dracula Mihawk has over his own powers, over his own blade's curse or duty. Shimotsuki Kozaburo telling us only weaklings believe in curses. They do so because they fear the blade and cannot live up to its duty, the calling it was made for. The final thing I'll say about Luffy's awakening comes from a comment I saw on Twitter that Luffy's apparent defeat in chapter 1042 had a hidden message, the inversion that Oda loves to play with. Odin failed, but Luffy will succeed. Kaido knocked out Odin and then proceeded to execute him, boiling him alive in a burning pot of oil. And yet here lies Luffy as Joy Boy, his body seemingly melting or resembling that of oil. Both Odin and Luffy wearing that characteristic smile, a fulfillment even of the story of Christ and the resurrection as Odin promised his soul will live on. Relevant religious imagery being all over the Wano arc, from the disciples of Odin and the 9 red scabbards, to the return or revival of Joy Boy via the awakening of Luffy's devil fruit and maybe its true name. In terms of resurrection or conquering the spirit within or becoming something more, in a video titled Zoro's Greatest Power is Why Mihawk Wears a Cross, I had mentioned Mihawk's cross-like necklace, how his cross is even presented as a weapon, a dagger, and as a weapon it is symbolic because Mihawk wields it to do battle maybe with that which lies within himself, the competing will or duty of his black blade Yoru that is said to know little to no restraint, a lack of restraint that parallels Enma and its duty or yearning. Even several chapters ago, Zoro's injured form had been wrapped up in a way that resembled a cross that looks curiously similar to Mihawk's black blade Yoru, the crucifix he wears around his neck also. The cross being a symbol of overcoming, but overcoming what? Given the religious imagery here, Kozuki Odin, and elements of Wano reflecting Christianity to an extent, the concept of belief, undying faith or will and rebirth, is Oda trying to tell us something when considering Mihawk and his holy cross or crucifix? Think of Dracula and how holy imagery is thought to keep darkness such as him away, there being a belief that Mihawk's character is somewhat inspired from the tales of Dracula. Does the cross symbolize conquering evil, conquering one's demons or the devil, so to speak, conquering the soul or curse of your blade, or whatever power that is sharing your body with you? A cross being the mark of one who has accepted a path of death or suffering and sacrifice, either with a smile or a stern expression as if nothing had happened, not just out of an inheritance of will, but the determination of one's dreams to be the world's strongest, the world's greatest, or even the pirate king. But as usual, we will have to wait and see. Don't forget to like the video, comment with your thoughts below, share this with your friends, and subscribe. Also click the notification bell. As always, there is more to come. Until next time.